So, if you've been following me for a while, then you would know that one of my favorite movies is The Matrix. Now, the bad guys in The Matrix, in simple terms, right? If you saw my last video, it's always kind of hard to tell who actually is the good guys and who's the bad guy. But if we take a simplistic look at The Matrix, then we could say that the bad guys are the agents. And the agents are essentially enforcers of the matrix. And essentially, the way it works is that anytime someone questions the nature of reality, demonstrates abnormal awareness, or just threatens the system in general, the agents are dispatched to neutralize this disturbance. And another fascinating aspect about the agents is that they have this ability to take over anybody's body who is plugged into the matrix, right? And this is where we get that famous scene from the movie where Morpheus and Neo are in a training program, and Neo sees the woman in the red dress, and then that woman turns into Agent Smith. And then this is essentially when Morpheus tells him how this works, right? So let's just check out the scene. So this is right after Neo saw the woman in the red dress, and then Morpheus tells them to pause the simulation.
If you are not one of us, you are one of them.
What are they?
Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system. That means that anyone we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent.
So the agents are no one and everyone. Now, that's a movie, right? But one of these fascinating things that I've witnessed, but it's not just me, I've seen people talk about this online, is that this phenomenon of an agent taking over someone's body happens in the real world. And while that may sound crazy, it sure seems like it's true. And I'm willing to bet that anyone who's unplugged or in the process of unplugging has noticed this phenomenon. Speaking from experience, I've had many conversations that push the limits and understanding of our reality. And when this happens with certain individuals, I see that their eyes glaze over and it's almost like they become a different person. And when this happens, they become angry and closed-minded and they start regurgitating the mainstream narrative like their life depends on it. It's extremely weird, but to give you a perfect example, this happened just a couple months ago. Back in August, I posted NASA's official photo of the lunar lander on the moon. Now, believe it or not, I was just having fun with that post. I was not trying to stir up people's emotions or make people mad. I honestly just thought I was going to get a few thumbs up and that's about it. But I was completely wrong. In fact, I got 40 comments on Facebook alone. And most of these comments were people being extremely triggered, calling me a conspiracy theorist, a flat earther, a science denier, and accusing me of spreading disinformation. It was crazy. And speaking of that, I just had a friend just over a week ago unfriend me and block me, again calling me a flat earther and a science denier. Now, I don't know how to explain that other than this is the agents of the Matrix overtaking these people. But let me show you the photo that I posted and then let's talk about it. Okay, so here's the photo. And this photo is right off of NASA's website. I can put the link to it in the show notes. And let's see if you can see my cursor here. So this is the official photo of the lunar lander on the moon taken by Neil Armstrong. So apparently this is Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong is the person behind the camera. And I posted this just because it looks like a 7th grade project that you did, a class project in science class where you, over the course of the year, you were going to build a replica of the lunar lander using household goods, right? I mean, as you can see here, just the the folds and how flimsy this is, the foil, not to mention the moon is a dusty surface, and this thing is as clean as a whistle. There's no dust, there's no nothing on it. And so back to the comments and even more proof of a agent of the Matrix, one of the people that responded was a person that I went to high school with. Now, I've been out of high school for almost 30 years, right? Which is kind of crazy to think about. But what's interesting is that we weren't even really friends in high school. And not that that matters. I'm just saying that we were cool. We were classmates, but I barely talked to him in high school, and I definitely haven't talked to him once since I've been out of high school. And it actually kind of surprised me that we were even friends on Facebook. And so literally 26 years later, out of nowhere, on a random post about the lunar lander, this guy comes in and is telling me, calling me all the names in the book and telling me that I don't understand anything about how the government works and that it would be impossible to keep this a secret. It was kind of hilarious and weird at the same time, because it's like, where did you come from? But it was just kind of funny because, like I said, I was not expecting this type of reaction from a simple post. And it was like it just flipped a switch on a lot of people, and it really got people mad. And like I was saying, the point of me even posting that was just to get people to question the narrative, right? I want people to start using their eyes and their ears and their intuition. See, because one thing I have learned when it comes to controlling the narrative, a major tactic that our controllers use is they get us to distrust our own eyes, our ears, and our intuition. See, I feel like most people can look at that lunar lander and immediately have a feeling that something feels off, that this doesn't look right, that this lander wouldn't be able to survive the harsh environment of space. But what happens is people see this picture and they might start asking questions, but the agents shut that down and they tell you this is the way it happened. They say it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter that this thing looks flimsy or is not dirty. This is the way it happened. We landed on the moon. End of discussion. Because we said so, and because science, right? And most people hear that and they immediately say, yeah, you're right. I was just getting a little weird. I was just getting a little nutty, and go about your day like nothing happened. But the truth of the matter is, I have no idea if we landed on the moon or not, right? Because I wasn't there, and I've never been to space. I've never been to the moon. But if you put a gun to my head, I'm going all in and saying we never went there. Because when you look into it, there's just too much funny business. There's too much that doesn't look right, sound right, or feel right. And speaking of things that don't feel right, have you ever seen the footage of the lunar lander taking off from the moon? Well, I'm going to show it to you. And I'm telling you, it looks weird. Okay, so here's the lunar lander.
Stage pushed. Engine arm is S. Okay, I'm going to get the pro. 99, proceeded. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good. Ag thought.
So when you look at that, what do you think? To me, it looks a little silly, but of course people will say it's 1/6 the Earth's gravity, and you don't need that much of a charge or a blast off to actually release yourself from the gravity of the moon, but doesn't pass the sniff test. It looks like bad special effects, the type of special effects you might get from a movie being made in the late 60s or early 70s. Or what about the lunar rover? Have you seen that footage? Let's take a look at it. All right, so here's the lunar rover cruising around, and I'm going to play this back. I want you to pay attention and look at the astronaut. His body never moves. Let me rewind that back. So take a look at this. There is zero movement from that body. And I will even fast forward it because there's a point when he comes back. So look, there's almost zero movement of that body. So I don't know. Maybe that's real. Maybe it's not. How did they fit that lunar rover on the lunar lander? It's always a good question. What was the purpose of taking a dune buggy up there and doing some donuts? I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why I don't believe we landed on the moon. And one of the reasons is, why haven't we been back? It's been over 50 years since we've landed on the moon. And there are many reasons to go back. Putting a military base on the moon, putting an outpost for further space exploration. There's probably even commercial reasons, whether it's mining or tourism or hotels. I mean, could you imagine in 50 years, we should be able to take a vacation to the moon. But one of the explanations that is given of why we haven't been back is that we've lost or even destroyed the technology, right? And here's a clip from one of NASA's own scientists saying this exact thing.
The moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. But going
I don't know. What do you make of that, right? How do you lose, or even, he actually said destroyed. I've heard lose. So why would you destroy that technology? That technology would be extremely valuable, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel all over again. Speaking of reinventing the wheel all over again, so there's an article that talks about how Elon Musk, who's the owner of SpaceX, says that it could take upwards of 8 Starship launches to fuel up for a single moon trip. And I'm going to play a video of a NASA engineer talking about this here in a second. But this is a crazy idea, because in the late 60s and 70s, they apparently made it to the moon and back on a single tank of gas. And yet Elon Musk is talking about needing a minimum of 8 rockets to refuel just to be able to make it to the moon and back. So either that technology that NASA lost or destroyed was extremely advanced compared to SpaceX and Blue Origin, or they were lying about going to the moon in the first place. See, here's a video of a NASA engineer talking about the refueling options for SpaceX.
I didn't realize that in order to get the human lander to the moon, we have to launch a bunch of additional rockets to tank up in low Earth orbit. I didn't know that. And I'm like, well, how many rockets do we have to do that with? And they're like, 6. And then I start, because I know people, I start calling people. I was like, dude, really, how many rockets is it? They're like, well, boil off. And okay, so I was like, some people were like, well, it's looking like 8. I was like, 8 rockets? We have to fire 8 rockets to fire 1 rocket to the moon? And then they're like, I mean, that's what they're saying, but it's probably more like 12. Really? And then I was like, I'm an engineer. I know how to do this stuff. So I started to account for like nominal schedule slip and boil off. And this is how many rockets it's going to take to fuel up that thing to get it to the moon. I've done the math, if you had any questions. So the question is this smart?
Okay, so I don't know. Again, I don't know what to make of that video, of why they're saying that we need anywhere from 8 to, I think, 24 rockets of extra gas in order to get to the moon and back, but yet 1 tank of gas in the 60s and 70s. Another thing that's always been fascinating and weird and that doesn't pass the sniff test is the fact that nearly all technology since the 60s and 70s has improved 1,000 times over, right? That they say that the phone in your pocket has more computing power than the entire lunar lander. And with all this increase in technology, SpaceX and Blue Origin are not able to go past Earth orbit. In fact, no human has ever been past Earth orbit other than the times we went to the moon. So something just doesn't add up. Or we were way more advanced in 1969 and we had smarter engineers and better technology than we do in 2025. So I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here. So I'll wrap it up by saying this. When it comes to the moon, there's really only two options. We either went or we didn't. And obviously I believe we didn't go. However, if we did go, I believe that there's one possibility that could explain all this weirdness. And that is, and this is a very fun theory, is that they went to the moon and then that they discovered a moon base, but not a human moon base, an alien moon base. And that this discovery forced the entire space agency to go underground. And so the theory is that we have a secret space program where we're going back and forth to the moon all the time, maybe even further, maybe even to Mars, and we are interacting with some sort of intergalactic federation of different aliens. And while that's a fun theory, that's not the theory I believe, although it's cool. I believe we just never went. And there's actually part of me that believes that I don't even know if we can get there. This is where I've talked about the idea of the firmament, which is where I get all these labels thrown at me. But I'm not going to get into that now. I'll do another episode on the firmament later and maybe go deeper into space and what I believe the Earth actually is and what it represents in the cosmos and what it represents in our cosmology. So I'll leave you with this. Do you think that this idea of agents of the Matrix operating in our real world, do you think that's true? Have you had an experience where you are talking with someone and you see them change, almost like they've been occupied by an agent of the Matrix and they get mad and no longer want to talk? Then they start calling you every name in the book and they just want to shut that conversation down and move on and start talking about football or Netflix or some other mainstream popular topic. And what's your take on the moon? Did we go or not? And if we did, what about this idea of alien moon bases? Let me know what you think. See you on the other side.